Hello everyone, and welcome to the 5th video in the War of the Visions Final Fantasy Brave EXVIUS Beginner Series. In this video, I'm going to discuss the basics of equipment, and then in the following video, I'm going to discuss crafting the equipment. There is a lot of information about equipment, so please be sure to pay attention, and let's get started. If you are a beginner, getting started and trying to understand all of the equipment can be a very large task, so let's take it step by step and start off by talking about how to equip a piece of equipment. By now, you've probably taken on a few quests, so let's head over to the formation screen and have a look at an example party and add some equipment to the units. As you can see on my screen, I have a few units here with no equipment equipped. Don't forget, in a previous video I mentioned that units limit break level will add additional equipment slots. Let's click on the first slot for Mont and give him a sword. You'll be shown a list of all the equipment that you own that Mont can equip, so let's grab a sword. Please note that the equipment is only equipable for certain jobs. A night job cannot equip a staff, and so on, so please ensure the equipment is usable by the job. Once you select the sword you want, you'll see some stats on the left side of the screen. There's a good chance you'll see some red numbers with some arrows pointing down too. This is dependent on the unit's equipment type proficiency. Essentially, when a unit hasn't become fully proficient with an equipment type, they get fewer stats from that type of equipment. You can raise the equipment type proficiency by equipping the various types of equipment, weapons, armors, and accessories to units and completing actions such as casting abilities or attacking while completing quests. Also, with the recent update, you can gain equipment proficiency when using story and event skip tickets. Each quest you complete with that equipment on that unit will raise the equipment proficiency a little bit. Every unit starts out with E rank proficiency for each type and then goes to D, then C, B, and finally A. Once a unit has A rank proficiency for that equipment type, they will get the full stats when using any equipment for that type in the future. The equipment proficiency required for each piece of equipment is dependent on its rarity. For example, to get the full stats from a piece of MR equipment, you need proficiency B, and R equipment just needs proficiency D. When starting out, it is recommended to start using equipment as soon as possible on your units so you can start gaining the proficiency. Okay, now once you select the equipment, you will get an additional screen that will show you how the stats change for the unit by equipping that piece of equipment. This is a very useful feature when swapping out equipment so you can see exactly how the unit stats are changed. Since we're on the screen, let me briefly explain the type for all equipment, which you may see under each equipment piece. As you can see on my screen, the type is Assault, which has a higher maximum attack stat when compared to other types. As you can tell, these types directly influence the stats of the equipment. If you want higher HP on your armor, you'd select the Vital type as it provides the highest HP. As you obtain equipment from quests or crafting, it is randomly assigned a type unless specifically stated, like purchasing the item from the shop. Later on, when you begin crafting, there are ways to select which type you would like the equipment to be, but I will go into that more in part 2 of this video when discussing crafting. For reference, you can see an image on my screen currently of the different types that exist in the game. Equipment can only be a few of these types per equipment, but it's important to learn the differences when crafting or selecting equipment to use. Okay, back to equipping some gear. One thing that I would like to note is you can only have one weapon and one armor piece per unit. Accessories, however, do not have this limit. Next, I am going to select a piece of armor from my next equipment piece. So now that brings us to the third and final slot, if you have that unlocked, of course. This third and final slot can only be used by TMR equipment, which is equipment that is obtained from each unit when they are both max awakened and achieve their max limit break. Clicking this slot will bring up the list of TMR equipment that you can use. Keep in mind this shares the same weapon, armor, and accessory equipping rule I just previously mentioned. Okay, so that covered it for equipping some equipment to your units, and be sure to repeat this process for everyone in your party to ensure they are performing their best when taking on quests. But before I move on, I want to mention favorite equipment, which saves you time when setting up a new party. Let's head over to the unit screen really quick and find a unit. Now on the bottom left, you'll see the favorite equipment button. Clicking this brings up the 3 equipment slots that I just talked about. When equipment is added here, it will automatically be equipped when adding the unit to a new party in the future, so you don't need to do it manually. Alright, so now that we have covered what equipment is and how to make the most of it, as a beginner, you may need to get some actual equipment to use. As I mentioned previously, there will be a part 2 of the equipment videos which will cover crafting new items, but in this video I will discuss some other ways that a new player can start gaining equipment. When starting out as a new player, it's quite likely that you don't have much equipment available, but there are a few ways to get some equipment. Mostly, you need to craft equipment by using recipes and materials, which I will explain in part 2 in depth, so please look forward to that. But for now, let me introduce some useful equipment for beginners. Firstly, you'll need to find Sasuke's katana available from the challenge missions that I mentioned in a previous video, which is usable on a few jobs, so please be sure to check out the list. In the normal shop, you're able to find N Rarity equipment directly for purchase. If there's something that you need, please be sure to check the shop often, as the items get updated multiple times per day. On top of this, from time to time, you can even find some equipment available for Visior in the shop. If you have the extra Visior, this can be a great way to gain powerful equipment that is already +3 or maybe even +5. And finally, any units that you get from Max Awakening and Limit Break will provide their own TMR equipment. Now let's discuss the differences in equipment rarity. All equipment that you use in War of the Visions FFBE has different rarities, just like units. And just like units, the higher the rarity, the higher the potential for the equipment. As a beginner, it may be tough for you to start out gaining equipment, so let's discuss the advantages of using N-grade equipment to start off. Unlike higher equipment, such as SR, MR, or UR, N-grade equipment comes ready to be leveled up to 30 without awakening. Each level you raise this piece of equipment can raise the equipment stat points, but this process will be covered more in depth in part 2. Since it's easier to level N equipment, it's advantageous of a new player to gather any N equipment you can and level it to 30. When looking to get better equipment from higher quests, such as limited event quests, it is important to have lots of different equipment to ensure you're being the most effective that you can be at those quests. Since Trust Mastery equipment works a little bit differently than standard equipment, I will cover that now. As I mentioned earlier, Trust Mastery Reward is a special equipment that is unique to each unit once the unit is both fully awakened and at their max limit break. Once that happens, you'll automatically receive the unit's TMR. Once you have the unit's TMR equipment, you can use it on other units provided they meet the job requirements. But remember, there's only one TMR equipment slot per unit in the party. You don't need to worry about awakening TMR equipment or leveling it up. However, some TMRs, most UR units, and months have a special ability that come along with them. This special ability starts at level 1 and can be increased to a maximum of level 20. Let's have a look at how that's done. Head over to the equipment screen and scroll through your equipment until you find a TMR's ability that you would like to enhance. Click on it, and in the bottom right corner you'll see Enhance Equipment Ability. Once you click on that, it will bring you to the Ability Enhancement screen. You will notice that unlike standard equipment, TMR abilities require armor pots. These armor pots can be obtained by doing a 3 times daily mission in the far plane. They can be obtained in the Mog Shop, and a lot more. So try and grab these whenever you can to ensure you're leveling your TMR abilities. Okay, so that wraps it up for this video. There was a lot of detailed information in this video, so please go back and give a watch if there's anything that you feel you need to watch again. If you happen to have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below and we can see about getting them answered for you. Of course, please check out the next video where you'll be able to really power up your units as I take a deep dive into the equipment system. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.